Now we'll start the painting chapter, which is maybe the most difficult one, but we'll see how to do it step by step. So first of all, you will need some masking tape. I'm using the Tamiya one. And as well, you will need a cutter. So you have to apply some masking tape on the eye. So we'll use the cutter to cut around the eyes, but before that you use a toothpick to apply it correctly around the eyes, as you can see there, and then carefully use the cutter to cut around the curve of the eye. Be careful to not cut yourself, obviously. And when that's done, you remove the paper and you should have the eye which is perfectly covered. So now we'll start by covering the dress, because we'll start to paint the skin. So we'll do the coverage of the complete dress and leave only visible the skin of the figures. So do not forget the inside of the dress as well, which is a tricky part there. Then I will use some plastic wrap, so that to avoid to use too much masking tape. So I'm just covering the complete dress with the plastic wrap and fixing it with some masking tape. And when that's done, that piece will be ready for the painting. So for the color, you will need all these paints ready, so you can do the mixing. The reference are the Tamiya one. And to mix them, you can use a syringe, and you just take the proportion that were on the screen before. Here I am using as thinner the Tamiya one, obviously in line with the acrylic paint that I'm using, but you will need to use the thinner that is in line with your paint, obviously. So you just mix them until you have something quite liquid. Label as well your painting to remind it. So use a paper as well, you will see the usage afterward. So I'm using a compressor for the airbrush, because we'll do it with an airbrush. A heater as well to ensure that we have enough heat and no moisture on the pipe. And then I'm using a double action airbrush, and you can see here the two action. So that's give a lot of precision on the painting. And here the same mask as before is recommended. Use the paper to tune the aircraft flow, and then when you are ready with the correct flow, you can apply it on the piece and regularly redo some check on the paper, and continue like that on all the piece. Do not forget the inside, obviously, of the piece as well. So when that's done, here is the result for the black color. Do the same on all air pieces, with putting more on the curve and less on the top of the pieces to have a little shading. So now I will show how to quickly clean your airbrush, so without doing the complete cleaning, but to shift between two paintings can be useful. So you use a mix of water and thinner, and you spray until you have a clean solution, and then you can move to the next color without doing the full cleaning of the airbrush that we'll see later on, and which takes obviously more time. Now we'll move on the bottle, so we'll simulate a half-filled bottle, so just put mask tape and put some clear red until you have a deep red color, and then let it dry and clean your airbrush. So now we'll move to the shadow skin tone. So for that you can use as well, you obturate your airbrush, and like that you can mix the painting without stirring it. And then you apply the shadow on every part of the piece that will require it. So for that you have to imagine the light somewhere on the figure and to put adequately the shadows on all the part of the figure accordingly to that. So we'll speed up obviously the painting because it takes some time to do it. When using a long time your airbrush, you can have the head of the airbrush which is obturated, so you can use a simple paper with some thinner to clean it, and then you can continue without having to clean everything on the airbrush. Normally it should do the trick. As you can see, for the shadow part you don't have to be precise, it's with the clear color, that will have the final result, which will be much better. So you can continue with the same logic on the other pieces, so the two arms, and then with the bust and the head of the figures, where you feel all the shadow on the depth of it. The technique I'm using here is first the shadow part, then the clear part, but obviously you can do it the opposite way, but I found it much easier for me to do that way, but up to you to do it in the way you want. So now, once again, a fast cleaning of the airbrush before moving to the clear part of the skin tone. Here, as you can see, I put more color next to the shadows and less the more I'm going out of the shadow. Like that it can bring as well another level of shadowing. So you have a really clear one on the top of the piece, and then it goes with more and more depth the more you are close to the shadow. So then you have to let dry the pieces for at least 1 or 2 hours, depending on the painting that you have. And you continue with the same technique on all the other skin pieces, so the 2 arms and then the bust. Here, as you can see, on the top of the shoulder we nearly have no painting, and like that we have another grade of painting. And now, after having cleaned the airbrush, I'm applying a final coat of clear green that simulates the bottle of wine over the wine. Let's see now how we fully clean the airbrush. So for that you have to dismantle it completely. So take the manual that you have received with your airbrush to see how to dismantle it. I advise you to remove the needle by pushing it outside of the airbrush, so from the bottom to the top, to not break the head of the needle. And then to clean it with a flat surface and some thinner. Like that you will have a very clean result, and you won't bend the needle, which is a very sensitive part. Then I'm using the brush cleaner to go everywhere inside the airbrush and to be sure to have a clean surface inside it. Then I'm using some cotton bud to finish the cleaning of the body part of the airbrush. So same for the head part of the airbrush, so where you can use as well some piece of paper to clean it well inside. And then you can pull back the needle as well, starting with the back of the needle and not the head from behind, because like that you are sure that you won't break the head of the needle. And so you just put all piece back carefully to not break it, because it's a sensitive tool. And then you can spray some air by obturing the head of the brush to push the remaining moisture out of the tube. So now we'll prepare the base. So for that you have received normally a decal. So the first thing to do is to prepare a hole to fix the figure. Here I'm using a transparent one, so I will need to paint it, but obviously if you have a red one directly you won't need that step. I'm using some Patafix to mark where the hole should be, and then I mark it with a marker, and when that's done you are ready for the drilling on the piece. So then choose a nail that will fit the hole that you did on your figure, so like that you can see on which side you have to drill, and then you can start to drill as perpendicular as possible from the surface and for the complete size of the display base. So when that's done, verify that your nail is going through. So then I'm marking the head of the nail because we need to do a little hole to hold it. So I'm choosing the head that is more close with the nail circumferences and then dig it. Then you can verify that the head of the nail is well hidden in the base. So as you will see here, the nail is too high, of course, so we need to cut it. So to do that I mark where it should arrive at the base, what is the size I need inside the figures. Then with a toothpick I take the distance that I add to the first mark that I took, and like that I have the correct size of the nail, and then I put a little sticker, so the remaining of the masking for the eye by example, and then I'm using the Dremel to cut the nail at the right distance. Then I smoothen slightly the edge of the nail, and I verify that the figure is fitting perfectly. So now we have to do some surface primering on the base if needed, and then we can start to remove all the masking tape on all the pieces. So be careful to not scratch the painting while doing so. You can use a toothpick like in the sample, and you should have the final result like that. So I'm using as well a needle to remove the one on the eye, so the masking tape, and as well a tweezer, and be careful to not scratch the face. So now I'm preparing the two colors for the dress, so one shadow and one clear part, and then I'm starting to mask all the skin part of the bust of the figure. You can go a bit over the dress because anyway we'll paint it black as in the sample picture, so it's more easy than on some other figures. You can be a bit less precise on that step. You can notice as well that I'm wearing a plastic glove on one hand. It's to avoid to alter the painting because it's a water-based painting, so the sweat of my hand might alter the paint that is already there. So you can reuse the plastic film that you used for the dress earlier on, and to cut it and to fix it to protect the head. Now that the masking is done, we are ready to start the painting. So we are doing clear red for the base to be as close as possible as the sample and reuse the already prepared painting. So here is the result. So fast cleaning of the airbrush then, and then we can switch to the clear green for the bottle. You will need to apply a lot of coating to have a dense green. So then fast cleaning of the airbrush, and we start with the shadow color of the pink dress. So here we have again the airbrush which is stuck, so we need a quick cleaning of the head. So as we showed earlier, a bit of thinner on the paper, and then you carefully clean the head, and then you can continue. So as for the body, you have to apply it everywhere you see it fits, depending on the light that you have imagined. Here, do not forget the inside of the dress, and here it's how it looks. Then fast cleaning of the airbrush before moving to the clear part of the pink. So on the edge of the piece usually, and you do the same way, so more color close to the shadow paint and less the more you go outside of this shadow color, and like that you have a very good shadowing on the piece. Here it's a beginner technique, so obviously we only use 2 colors, but you can use more than 2 colors obviously to obtain an even better result. But here the result is already quite fine. So here it's how it looks like. So now cleaning of the airbrush as usual, and then I'm applying a bit of shadow, so it's the clear gray from Tamiya, and I'm applying to enhance a bit. It's an optional step, but you can do it. It's giving more depth in the shadows. Then a fast cleaning of the airbrush, and light red, so clear red on the roses. We'll finish them anyway with a brush, so here cleaning of the airbrush, and we can start to remove the masking tape on the figure. So be careful to not scratch the painting, because if not you will have to redo the painting obviously. So here is the result that we have currently. So you can see a white line, but it's not an issue for the moment. So now we'll apply the decal on the display base. So for that you need some water. You just have to let it penetrate the decal, then you remove the decal and you fix it on the display base. So to fix it, you can use 2 cotton pads, and like that it will remove a bit of the water as well, and it will be better to fix the decal, and you will have to let it dry for a few times. Now I'm using 2 types of glue, one the Patex which has a long dry time, and the super glue which has a very short dry time. So I'm doing some super glue, fix the nail with the figures in the right position, and when it's the case I'm putting some Patex to have a final fit for the nail, and which will be more resilient. So now, as it's a beginner, we won't paint the eye, so we'll use the decal furnish with the figure. It's the first time that I'm using that, and we'll see that it's not that easy. So first of all, you have to apply it on the figures. Here they are quite thick, so we'll need two toothpick and a cotton bud to fix it. And you will maybe have to do it once or twice to finally get your way and to have it fixed. Here is how it looks like when it's fixed, and then you can do the same for the other eyes, and then you have the final result like that. So now we'll use some brush. So I'm using a 000 PBO1 for that operation. So we'll paint on the roses some flat red. So just ensure that all the roses are correctly painted. We'll do some other coating afterwards. Then I'm using magnifying glass, because now we'll have very small details and you will need that to be very precise. I'm as well using a smaller brush to do the nails. The nails are done with the gloss thread, so the X7 from Tamiya. So then you can do the same on the foot. And we use as well a bit of gloss thread on the roses to have a little bit of depth in them. So now I will use the rubber black to do the surrounding of the dress. This will take a lot of time because you have to redraw for some part all the little bouncy parts, and it's a quite long operation. Do not forget to do the inside of the dress as well, in case of the arm is not covering correctly. And then you continue the same way until you have done the complete piece. So here you can see that we have some white remaining, so we have to use some of the color from the airbrush to have the final result like that, where we have a clean finish. So now you can use a cutting mat to cut the wine bottle. It's not decal, so you'll have to stick them, which is a challenge. So when you have cut the material, I'm using a double-sided tape. So it's the best way I found to stick on the bottle, and then you just cut the tape at the right size and stick to the paper, and then you can just put that sticker on the bottle. For that I've put a little piece of masking tape, like that I have some guidance to put it correctly. So when that's done, you can see that the decal are quite shiny, so I want to remove that aspect that I don't like around the eyes. So I will use some flat clear. I know that some products exist to melt the decal, but I never use them, so I prefer to use some flat clear that I apply little piece by little piece, not too much, and several coating until you have the final result. Then I'm using the shadow pink color on the lips to have a first shadowing on the lips. So you can see already that we start to see a difference between the eyes and the lips. So the lips I will use the clear red as well that we use for the airgraph, so to do a first coating of it. And then I apply a final coating of clear red, but not diluted. And you can see the final result of the red lips. So now I'm doing the eyebrow, so it's not an easy step and I'm not that good at it, but the only advice I can give you is to try on paper before and then give it a shot when you feel comfortable. Then I'm taking back the rubber black to finish the string. And for that you will need to use several types of brush to best fit the curve. So I'm using as well some accent color, it's optional, but it's to give a little bit more of depth in the roses on the head. So I'm using the brown one. And here is the final result.